Hey, look! Hey, look, we're live! That was
We're
a flawless
live.
go live. Nobody heard me say, I know how to press buttons.
It was perfect. I loved everything about it. If I
It
could
was
do it again,
perfect.
I'd do it again the exact same way
You
that
know
we
what? That's
just
a
did it.
really good point.
Yeah, 10 out
It
of
is.
10, no notes.
No
Just flawless
notes.
execution.
I know how to press
To,
buttons. Hey, look, we're
yeah,
live!
we're
What a good
welcome to
bit.
Cult EXP, a channel here at Plus One EXP. I'm Sarah, the stepdad and cult leader here at Plus One.
Oh no, and I'm Keegan EXE. I'm the content necromancer and other cult leader. Plus One's a weird little brand that multi-classes in tabletop game design, beard and skincare alchemy, and the Bardic College of Content Creation. The dream and hope here at Plus One's to help amazing designers find great players who love their games, and help amazing players find great designers whose games they can love. Look at me, Sarah. I did it.
Oh my god.
Today you're joining us for Character Study. It's a cult classic where we sit down with folks across the TTRPG space to learn more about their character in a system they love. And out of game, we're taking audience questions, so feel free to chime in with questions as we move along.
Our guest today is Danielle Osterman, an eclectic Ttrpg designer.
Ttrpg.
You might know her from Monster Guts, the action-packed monster hunting TTRPG, or you might know her from their Yiddish fantasy TaroTRPG from A to Zine. You might even have attended the Osterman Academy of Magical Arts and gotten into all sorts of trouble. They're about to try running games over the internet for a live audience with Neon Lights Roleplay. So check them out and stay tuned for deets. Danielle, welcome. We're so
Hello, thank you
excited
so
to
much
have
for
you.
having me. Yeah, seem to be here.
It's the bomb.com. What system are we using
So
for today?
now this is me throwing a wrench into the works because you've got a really nicely established thing going. And so I thought,
Yes.
okay, we're making a character, but let's not make a character for any game. We're just going to use this sort of extra paraphernalia that you can find in my wonderful TaroTRPG collection.
Amazing.
Yeah. So the thing that we're going to be doing is drawing tarot cards to make a wheel, and then we're going to be reading characters' backstory and how they're perceived and people in their social network out of those tarot cards.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm in. I don't know if
It's
you
so
watched my body assign itself to this cause, but it happened. It was just like, yes, we're doing this. Is great.
Yeah.
Can you talk to us a little bit about Tarot TRPG, like where it came from, what inspired you, all of that?
Absolutely. So as a game designer, I feel like I find myself in sort of this OSR-ish field, but with a much more interest in folk magic and folk practice. And then also as a Jewish woman who is also interested in Jewish magic and the history of Jewish mysticism. I've been doing a lot of research into that history and the way that modern esotericism has appropriated a lot from the Jewish mystic tradition. And so I was like, okay, I've got a lot of ideas. I love using the tarot as a storytelling tool in tabletop role-playing games, as a way of granting and also intentionally losing, resigning agency over to the cards, which I think is a much more interesting sort of augur of play than dice can be sometimes. And so the TaroTRPG from A to Zine was like, okay, I have a couple of ideas. Let me see if I can make 26 of them. And make it even more so, we're going to make Mosaic compliant for most of them so that you can pick them up and put them into any game no matter what you're playing, because they're only ever going to reference themselves for rules or terms or ideas. And so we've got how do you use the tarot to talk about chases? How do you use the tarot to talk about buildings and the psychic imprints left behind on a building by its previous residents, and how players can query that to learn information about the space and what's going on inside of it.
So cool.
How do we use the tarot to figure out what herb you've picked up off of the ground and what kind of magical implications it might have, and how do we use the tarot to model making magical charms and potions that and have not mechanically prescribed but highly suggestive effects. So that, again, if you're playing in Mouse Rider or you're playing in that awful 5th edition thing, or you're playing Pathfinder, you can find some way of using this. It'll be really fast and really seamless. Just pick it up, make your game better, and then keep doing the more of the game that you like.
I like that. This is awesome. I'm very, very excited for this. I have to say, so I'm gonna out myself right now. I know very little about tarot. Like I'm like I don't know really anything. I know there are cards. I know that they are read. That's the extent of it. So anytime it comes up and
By
there's an
red,
opportunity
you
to
mean
learn more,
physically red, right?
yeah, like physically with like they are read
They're the color
sometimes.
red.
They're the
Uh,
color. They all have to be the color red. This is a rule that exists. No, I have no idea. But I'm really excited to learn more about it because it's just one of those things that's always kind of lurking on the edge of my interests, but it's never something I've gotten to engage with directly. So I'm jazzed as hell.
yeah, tarot. So tarot is, I mean, it's a deck of cards, and you look at it and you read it, and by read we mean like form and interpretation, guided by like your own psychohistory, and then the ideas that the card is said to represent. Um, like tarot has a really sort of sordid history. Again, talking about that appropriation of Jewish mysticism and Jewish mystical ideas. The founders, like the creators of the original tarot, really anti-Semitic and also highly appropriative of not only Jewish mysticism but a much wider, like and sort of non-Western forms of mysticism and magical thoughts. So like it is a very complicated history. And what's been really exciting about the past like 15 years is seeing a reclamation of tarot and saying, okay, we acknowledge that this tool has a really terrible past, but there are a lot of ways that we can use this to be queer, to be much more inclusive, and to be much more and to honor the original, like the places from which these ideas and symbols came from. Most tarot decks, and like because there are lots of different formats and versions, are 78 card decks. They have 4 regular suits, like playing cards, except that they have 14 cards instead of 13 cards. And then there's the weird one that everybody knows, which is the major arcana. And that's 22 cards that are just super neat and really like powerful in their own right, and like having to do with sort of larger than life, more societal, cataclysmic changes and ideas. There are lots of different ways that we can look at the tarot, and one of the things that make tarot, I think, really cool for tabletop games specific is that, unlike in real life, where you can use tarot as sort of an interpretive guide to like suss out what questions you should be asking yourself or asking the person for whom you're reading. And in tabletops, we can just make literally the shit the cards say true.
Yeah.
And that is such a like a cool and fascinating use of these cards. So I can pull over a card and say, okay, literally, this is the history of this space. Literally, this is who you're talking to, and we can read from that card, and we can complicate that as we like, but it gives us a really rich sort of place to begin our creative work.
Yeah. And I think you mentioned earlier when you were talking about it kind of leaves the space open, right? You pull the card, and now there's immediately an area for interpretation and collaboration, which is what TTRPGs, like at their best, has those moments. You're already introducing that through this tool, which is phenomenal, and I'm very, very excited. Thank you for the rundown. That was excellent.
Oh, you're very welcome. Yeah, and like one
Can
of the
I tell
things
an embarrassing tarot story real fast, just because I think it's very funny?
Yes.
Fine.
Yes.
So I've written multiple games using tarot, and for the longest time I thought it was an 80 card deck because I had a special tarot deck that had the Artist and the Well as 2 additional cards. And somebody at some point like read through one and they're like, "What the fuck is this card you reference?" It's like, the Well, and they're like, "That's not a tarot card."
Oh, no.
It's really embarrassing when you find out that like I used to make money reading tarot online, and I had no fucking idea.
I mean,
That's very good.
That is a really good story. It also, I think, speaks to one of the things that makes tarot really cool, which is that just because most of the people use a 78 card deck doesn't mean an 80 card deck is wrong, right? And like, is it gonna be harder for people to find an 80 card deck so they can actually use your stuff, and thus makes you a pretty bad designer? Yeah, it does.
Yeah,
oh no,
100%.
But like, it's still like the deck is still like that's still a valid, good deck. Like oracle decks are a term for like tarot-like decks. So Spindle Wheel sort of falls into that kind of space sometimes, that have nothing to do with the irregular 78 or 80 card structure of your deck. And there are lots of really cool and special Oracle decks out there. There are like decks based around like biblical angels, and based around herbs, and based around like phases of the moon, and based on like actually there's a really lovely Oracle deck that was about archetypes often found in Asian American populations, and the Oracle deck is designed for use in therapy for folks of that background. So there's a bunch of like really phenomenal Asian American scholars who are talking about their work and figuring out sort of therapeutic tools to help people connect with common elements of their past and shared trauma, and make that into conversation in a really productive way. And so like Oracle decks are such a really cool and interesting and really powerful, useful tool. That was a lot of adjectives, goodness. And that non-standard format of tarot and tarot adjacent practices is, I think, one of the practices' real strengths.
Awesome. So I want to jump into it. I want to see what this is. I'm excited.
Let's go.
I have so many questions.
Okay. So a lot of the like stuff in TaroTRPG from A to Zine is based on Gelgeling, which is my Yiddish fantasy setting.
Okay.
And if you head over to Neon Lights, I'll be running an AP of that coming in the coming months. So stay tuned, I guess. And so but Gelgelim is the Hebrew word. It means wheels, which is why like Wheels in Wheels Publishing is the name of my itch.io page. And it's about rings and sort of mutual interdependence and interconnection, and how just focusing on linkages and motion. And so this character spread that we're going to do is M from Mishpacha. Mishpacha is the Yiddish word for family. And so what we're going to do, we're going to do 2 total tarot spreads. The first wheel is going to be 7 cards, and I'm going to do some terrible and ill-advised camera shenanigans, so that rather than looking at my beautiful face, you're going to look at my like mouse tray and see what we're talking about. Let's see if this will. Okay.
Yeah, that's working.
Perfect.
That's working. Okay, I'm going to make sure that on the stream. Cool, it's working on the stream. So we've got my tarot deck here, and I'm just going to give you a heads up. I really love this tarot deck, but it also has a lot of like uterine imagery. So just as a heads up, there might be bush involved.
Okay.
Just letting you know. So we do a little shuffle. And so our first spread is 7 cards we've got. And they're going to form, as you can see, a wheel around 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I can count. I have a degree in math. It's great. So we have 7 cards here, and like center card, we have the 7 of Pentacles. And the center card in this spread is not necessarily who your character is, but how they are perceived by their communities.
Okay.
Cool. So we're bringing up the thing right now, which is really lovely, which is a really overview of this process. Now for the interpretation guide, I have a lovely book that came with my thing. And so if we're building me in this tarot read, what we're doing is we're just going to draw 7 cards, and I get to talk about my life, I guess.
Yeah.
And my own psychic history. So great. Okay, 7 of Pentacles. Where in my booklet are you? Okay. Every tarot interpretation book is going to be different. They're going to have some commonalities. They're going to have some differences. Some of them are really bad. Some of them are okay, pretty good. This is like a nice mix. So 7 of Pentacles signifies income, personal gain, and return coming from areas of your life in which you have labored. The bounty of your harvest has justly grown because of the love and energy you put into this metaphorical tilling. This card can also highlight a lack of return on investment and financial difficulties you might be experiencing. Cool. So neat. This, I think, definitely is talking about my, I guess, identity as a tabletop gaming designer, right? This is I guess in I am being perceived as a designer, which I think is appropriate on a stream where I'm being interviewed for my work.
Yeah, it works for me. So
Yeah.
I'll ask the question though. What
Mhm.
drew you to TTRPG design? What was the call to this particular form of creativity?
Oh, that's one's very easy. See, I played Dungeons and Dragons 3.5 edition, and it was so
There you
bad
go.
that I just had
There
to
you
start
go.
designing. Like straight up, I played through I played through in so I played a lot of Neverwinter Nights as a kid.
Uh-huh.
And like to this day, I think Neverwinter Nights, which is a computer role playing game, Neverwinter Nights is the best D&D has ever been as a game. That is the best way to interact with D&D, regardless of edition.
Mm.
Like straight up, that's my D&D hot take. And Ray is
We need
exactly right in the comments. It was so bad it inspired me to fix tabletops. Yeah, you're right.
I love there's also this energy like within the queer community where we experience something and we go, we can do this so much better and just doing it.
Yeah,
Like it's a constant theme under everything. Like this sucked for me, I'm gonna do it better. Like
yeah.
I love that energy.
That's why I'm here in this space. I
Yeah.
started off making a god awful 3.5 conversion of Garth Nix's old Kingdom Chronicles,
I
which was
freaking love Garth
I was to
Nix.
say,
I
oh
love
god,
Garth Nix. I love
we've
his
lost
books,
Sarah.
and I love his books. And I forced the kindest group of people as a sophomore in college through like my attempts to do like video game zombie design and like
Yes.
multi. It was a labor of love, and I learned a
Of
lot
course it was.
from it. And I will never show this to anyone ever.
Danielle, I was just gonna say we have to talk
Nope.
about it.
No, we're
Not
not.
here,
Nope,
but
nope, nope,
later.
nope, nope. No, gosh, no, no. Maybe like no. Maybe you two bully me really hard, but like
I
no.
wouldn't bully. I would just ask really nice. Anyways.
I got it. No way. Danielle, Sarah wants to see it.
Oh shit! No, no, Keegan, no. Yeah.
Perfect.
And yeah, we can draw a pretty direct line from like what I did there and how I needed to make it better, and now here I
Mhm.
am making it good. And you know, we can
Awesome.
see that my chickens have come home to roost a little bit in the Seven of Pentacles, as well as lack of return on investment, like all of the art that I spent a lot of good money on. That is good
Yeah.
art. I don't regret it, but I would love it if one of my games would break even. That would be cool.
Honestly, what a feeling.
Right? Right?
How relatable.
Okay. So I think that's like
That's part
how
one.
I am seen, the ways that I'm
Yeah.
seen here. That works out pretty well. Okay, next wheel. Looking at the reference on the other page. Oh, you can't see my face. This is perfect. Okay. So cards, labor. Okay. We can look at cards 1 and 2, which are cards 1 and cards 2.
Okay.
Let's see. To determine sort of what trade my family has practiced or been practicing. So what have we got here? We've got the Emperor and we've got Justice.
Ooh.
Boy. Okay. So Emperor, Justice, these are obviously like really big, highfalutin ideas and concepts. Where do I even start with this? My goodness. Okay.
Pulling double major arcana there. Rough.
Like yeah, I mean, I think we can look at that though as in the ways in which my birth really won the lottery, and that like my dad works for Microsoft. And so I've had a lot of like privilege in my life. You know, the ability to live with my parents essentially rent free for the last several years as I try to figure out my like non-tabletop stuff out has been super invaluable. I've had a lot of, you know, I've especially as a trans person, like I really appreciate that and know that is not nothing or even a small thing. It is a very big thing. And so I think we can read something of that in the Emperor and Injustice. In terms of like choosing from some of these options that are actually in here and are kind of linked much more closely, I get to pick whatever I want, which is again speaking to the privilege that I have really strongly benefited from. Let's see, I worked the land as a serf or shtetl folk. No, No, I did not. Serving the local nobility, kind of. Poached and foraged, definitely not. I am too prissy about it. Wand and cup. You practice a guild trade and are consequently wealthy. There we go. That's what we did. We practiced software development. That's a guild
Yeah.
trade. Not unionized yet, but it will be one day. Okay. So that's cards 1 and 2. Card number 3, how I relate to my family. Oh dear. Okay, 3 of Swords. Let's see how this is gonna go. 3 of Swords, reading through my book. Boop, 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 doo. Okay. Illusions within are sometimes revealed in splitting up. This split is approaching. You will gain a precise clarity regarding the separation. Whether this means a romantic, familial, or interpersonal chasm depends on the question at hand and the possession of the 3 of Swords and overall in relation to the overall reading. Well, yikes.
Sometimes you know
feel like we
tarot,
got
and
speed.
someone's like, "I pulled 3 of card related to 3 of swords related to family," and you're like, "You're gonna get there. You're gonna get there."
Neat. Neat. Cool. Well, I did think that I was probably going to get read for filth. I thought that was going to be Egan doing it, and instead it's myself.
No,
cool.
Sometimes I can just be quiet. It's incredible.
It's really bad. I am hoisting myself on my own petard. Okay. Yeah. This split is approaching. Fuck. That's no good. I'm kind of comfy here. So I mean, I guess maybe this means that like I don't know, move out.
Yeah.
Maybe I can. That's like the positive like way I can read this is that, and in terms of like relating to how I am with my family, and that in the moving out and the creating this space will bring a greater clarity to how we get along and can relate more as adults than parents and childs. Or maybe we'll revert and go back, be more of a parental, like supporting and overbearing relationship, and we'll find out. Well, no, you will not find out. I will find out. Maybe I will tell you on Tumblr.
Danielle will post us later. There will be a blog. She'll give us all the deets.
Life update from Danielle. Oh boy. Cool. Okay. We're gonna move on to the next card now.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, because that was. All right.
That's the thing that I'm learning with tarot is that it gets real.
It gets real
fast.
Especially when you're reading your own cards instead of having them read to you. There's like a level of I can divine a meaning from this that like maybe somebody who didn't know me as well couldn't.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure, because it's the thing that I ascribe to is you find meaning where you look for it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so when you have something that kind of says a certain phrase, and sometimes they hit different, right? Like you could see it today versus tomorrow, and it would just be different. But I really enjoy activities like this where it is that sort of introspective, like oh shit kind of moments where it's you're kind of staring at your own truth a little bit through a different lens. And I think a lot of the times, I'm going to go on a bit of a tangent here, but I think a lot of the times that's what makes character creation in any game so fascinating to me, is because it is in a way us trying to kind of talk through those truths, see those truths in a different lens. Not as bluntly as tarot maybe, but it's we create these systems to explore ourselves and our identities and these things that we're, I don't even think consciously struggling with, but that are a part of who we are. And that's why, like, when people talk about making their characters, I'm like, so who are you gonna be? Like, there's a lot of questions there.
Yeah, 100% everything that you just said. And actually, I think when we're done with this spread, I'll talk a little bit more about how this works in a very different way when it's about a fictional person and not yourself.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So next set of cards. So card number, I think we're in card number 4. Card number 4, the leader of my mishpacha. 8 of Wands. Reading my little booklet. No, Wands are earlier. 8 of Wands. 8, 8, 7, 8. This card is akin to a flight of arrows. The 8 of Wands signifies a heap of creative potential and multiple metaphorical green lights ahead. It is a time to seize initiative and impulse, creatively, personally, romantically. Move along and forward. The urges you feel are good ones. So relating that to a person is a little weird. Like how we relate that to like who, like, so I guess we can think of that this is someone who is enabling other folks to get those green lights and to move ahead. It is a force, a person that is allowing that sort of that forward movement. And like that, of course, is my mother in my particular family relationship. That is, someone who is a stay-at-home mom, like enabled, and who runs my family. She does all of the scheduling, all of the organizing, all of the task delegation, etc. And without her, I would not be who I am today. My sister would not be who she is today. My dad would not be who he is today. And I mean that in a very positive, transformational way. Yeah.
I like that. That's very sweet.
Yeah. My mom's great. She's watching this. Hello, Mom.
Hello, Danielle's mom. Oh.
All right. So card number 5 stands for the person at the heart of the family. We have the strength here, goodness. All right. Again, this sort of speaks for itself a little bit as we run to the Major Arcana, which is in the front. But it's someone who is strong. Although what I like about this card in this particular deck, like it's not necessarily strength in domination or muscles, which is often the reading, but it can be about a metaphorical strength, the kind of strength that allows you to sit with uncomfortable truths. And for that reason, I think it is probably also my mother, in that ability to sit and to be quiet. Oh, that's very kind of you, Ray. That's very kind of you. Ray is saying, I am strength all the time.
Just got a flash of some dope guns. I love it.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on. So our last card in this first spread, the person most estranged from the mishpocha, from this family unit. We have 3 of Wands. Let's see how bad this one is.
Look,
I love
it. Doesn't have to be bad.
That's the thing about tarot. And I've never heard anyone talk about tarot and be like, I wonder how good it's gonna be. It's always like, how's this gonna punch me in the face? Like every time.
No, you're 100% correct. You're 100% correct. It is absolutely one of the strengths is that it is only going to lie to you as much as you lie to yourself.
Oh, I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah, cool. Put on a t-shirt. I'll take 30% of the profits. Okay. 3 of Wands.
Girl, you'll take more than that. Get out.
3 of Wands is a card of collective energy. When manifesting your future on this undulating orb, there is power in gathering strength with the help of others' talents and energies. The more hands clasped in casting a spell, the more likely the spell succeeds. So it's time to think big. Muse over travel, new horizons, and a perpetual wave of new magical people to meet. Okay. So now I have to wrap around how this is representing a person from whom my entire family unit is most estranged. Again, that's a weird one. That's kind of thorny. So there are, I think, a number of ways that we could read this. I think the way that I'm going to choose to read this right now is that this card, in fact, represents all of society outside of my COVID bubble.
Yeah.
I live with 3 other people in this house, and I love it. But also, it is a time of plague, and it is a time of a lot of people pretending that it is not a time of plague, and that creates a barrier, limits between the 4 of us and everyone outside, which is kind of dark and rough. Okay.
I think that's the reality for a lot of folks, though, and like recognizing that that's present, I think is important. Like, I love that interpretation. Honestly, I think it's great because I was even sitting here. I'm like, what could it mean? I think that's really great.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. So that's like me and my family, I guess, in a nutshell, which is the point of this first spread,
Yeah.
first page. There is like who was this family unit? Who are the people involved? And I think, as it's pretty clear, like if we're making this about fictional people, and we were to do, say, another spread about someone who is not me,
Right.
like we're going to come up with a very different set of prompts that is going to invite questions like, okay, who is the center of this family? What are
Right.
they about, and how do they relate to the rest of the family? Is it a healthy relationship? Is it an unhealthy relationship? It's is giving you ideas and ways to connect your character to not necessarily like the other player characters, but the world that supports or doesn't support, in some cases, that player character. I think the best compliment I ever had as a game designer is I introduced this a couple of years ago, and my friend ever since has used this or other variations of this for every character that she has made since. Which, like,
Oh, that's awesome.
that's a huge vote of confidence. And like every
Yeah.
time she's like, "Yeah, I did the reading during your thing," and I'm just like, "Oh, yay, I did a thing," and it's worked really well for her, and she's had a
Right.
lot of like really interesting character backstories because of that.
Right.
Sometimes you end up with the devil as the emotional center of your family, and like, yeah,
Sometimes you really do, though.
sometimes you really do though, and like it's an incredible like stroke of coincidence, but it also, oh, what a good story, what a good
Yeah.
story, what a good character, like, and immediately that's like, oh, there are all of these stories that we can tell, and we can, as a facilitator, I can be like, oh, here is a character
Right.
who, as a member of the family, like they're not going to, that's a really phenomenal antagonist if you're playing Thirsty Sword Lesbians or any other like really character driven games. That's someone I can really like use and abuse and really gank my players in the guts with.
Right. And
Yeah.
that's because again, I feel like it's in the character creation part, like we as human beings show our hands, right? Where we're
Mhm.
whether it's we're designing the impenetrable hero that's like good at everything and has never felt a feeling ever, or our ooey gooey soft boys and girls and theys and thems that are just like everything is it. There's something about having more insight into who they are, where they come from, that just makes that so much more powerful and interesting. And I think it helps players, people show up in the games a little bit more as themselves, which is kind of part of the point, I guess. Like, of
Mhm.
course, we want to be cool adventurers that can do all this cool stuff. But at the end of the day, I think we really just want to show up as ourselves and be seen and have a good time. And I think that TTRPGs create this wonderful way in which we're like, this is actually me, but in a safe place doing cool stuff. And it like anything that can kind of attach to that deeper connection and meaning, I think it's always really cool to see where people derive that from.
Absolutely, absolutely, Sarah. Um, and I also really like that like using these cards is often going to propel players into spaces that they wouldn't normally choose to go. Like
100%.
obviously they can always like switch a card out if it's really like not something they want to engage with. They can always just draw another spread, and that's also totally fine. But there is a there is the invitation to not take a path that you've taken before and still read yourself into this character that you've made, but it's going to transform and be in a different way than maybe you thought it was going to turn out. Um,
Hmm.
and as
Yeah.
someone like runs games where players tend to make a lot of characters because there's a lot of death, like having a lot of invitations to read yourself over and over and over again can be very cathartic and also sometimes very painful, which is, why you got to be really good about working with your players and finding where everyone's boundaries are, and so you
Yeah.
don't
See,
cross them.
so important.
Safety tools, yeah, exactly. But
Use them. Use them.
yeah, please, oh my goodness, please use them. Baruch Hashem, please. Um, yes, yes.
I have kind of like a follow-up there because we talked about um, sometimes there being paths that you don't want to go down with like
Mhm.
character creation, right? You're like like the comfort thing of living in the safe place. Um, do you find like when you've used this way of like creating characters and kind of pulling from that narrative, do you find that you kind of end up going those places, not like intentionally, but just through the process of like that self-exploration, you kind of wind up there anyways? Because I'll raise my hand and say like, I don't want to talk about it. And then the next thing I know, like my character's exploring my like relationship with my dad. And like, I'm like, how did I get here?
This isn't what I wanted.
This isn't what I wanted. I wanted to be a cool guy. And now I'm like, I'm struggling with like the aspects of fatherhood and I don't understand.
One, that's rough. I'm so sorry, friends.
It was wonderful. It was a great experience. But I find, like, again, where you're kind of pulling on these elements and themes from the tarot, right? And like, it's one thing when you're creating like a fantasy character, but I just don't think you can really separate yourself like fully. You know what I mean?
No, absolutely not. And that's the like. Most people have a really poor understanding of what they want. Just in life. And I think that when it comes to tabletops, that it can pull people to play in games and to play as characters that are not really what they want to be doing, but it's what they think that they want to be doing. And so with tarot, because you've given over, like in a sense, you were giving over authorship of this character to an uncaring and uncompromising deck of cards that does not care about you. In truth, you are still full control because you're the one doing all the decision making. But because you have this fantasy of you've abdicated responsibility, you have a freedom to, well, I didn't really want to do this, but like it does make a lot of sense with what the card is doing. So we'll see how it goes. And it turns out that actually like that was what you really wanted, even though you didn't necessarily know that.
Right. It's this little push, and like, hey man, but for real, like just go see what's over there. Maybe it's not so bad.
Hey, putting on a skirt, it won't kill you, dude. I promise, especially if you're in your own home, it's fine. It's all good.
Just try it out. You're gonna be okay. It's gonna be fine.
Yeah.
It probably will look great.
I'm guaranteed it's gonna look great. Like,
of course it is.
Yeah, all eggs are fantastic and hot. It's a rule. Yeah.
Daniel's just out here making banger t-shirts. Okay.
That's what the
all
stream's
legs
about,
are hot.
right?
It's true. It's true. Yeah. Yeah. You know, that's really like that's what my career should be when I move out. It'll just be making t-shirts.
Banger t-shirts.
Making banger t-shirts. Absolutely. Now, is it banger t-shirts to get banged in? So we'll see. Maybe both.
We've got a lot. We're gonna have to continue the call afterwards. Start working out the business structure of this particular enterprise.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm excited.
I think it'll be great. I think it'll be great. I see a great partnership in our future.
Absolutely.
The next question I want to ask is, you know, as you wrote this kind of this way of looking at different elements in games, what did you learn from it? Or like what did you take away from the creation of this particular system?
It's hard. Like, and I say that in a very like sort of blasé way, but it's like writing a random table, and like a lot of what this zine is about. It's a lot of like random tables that are presented in a slightly different and more like thematic way. Writing a really good table is really hard. And this gave me a lot of experience to not only to practice, but also to see the weaknesses in my own design. To say, you know, for example, I need 26 different ways of using the tarot. And it took me until like the day before I was done to figure out what the last letters were. Because like I'm trying to iterate, I'm trying to think, okay, what are the things that I can model with cards? How do I make that interesting?
What do I use a Q for?
What do I use the Q for? Oh my goodness gracious. What do I use the Q for? Actually, N ended up being really, sorry, was it N? One of them, let me figure out which one. A couple of the letters that you would not think were really hard were actually like really, really challenging. Get back to the table of contents.
I believe it.
That's slowly scrolling through the book right now, so folks can see.
Creating 26
truly so much
anything,
in here.
And like in trying to fit like that entire idea into one 8.5 by 11 spread. so that
Mhm.
I had to be really I had to really think about what is the most evocative language that I can use that is the shortest possible language that I can use. Um,
Mhm.
and I like it was really phenomenal writing practice because it's the best writing I think is very concise and very impactful at the same time. And in terms of from a writer and a construction, a design perspective, that's I learned a lot. In terms of I learned also a lot about tarot as well, and the
Mhm.
ways that we can take tarot and use the divisions within them to create new ways of thinking about structuring the cards. So we can
Mhm.
put the major arcana up against the minor arcana cards, and so there are a couple of trick taking kinds of mechanisms where the major arcana cards are like gotchas, and so we can look at the statistics and the probability of that and how that works and how that math is actually extraordinarily hard to computate. um, Cards are really hard. Your stats professors lie to you. um, and also the what are the best modes of tarot in your game, because sometimes, and which is where we get to A is for augurs, which is the very first letter. I think it's the first one I wrote, which is that tarot cards are great. Um, and here are a couple of ways that we can use tarot cards and the types of scenarios in which tarot cards are going to shine really well. Um, However, I don't think the tarot cards cannot replace dice effectively. They tell and they
Mm.
do super different things, but the contraposition, well, the inverse of that though, that converse of that is the converse of that though is that dice can never replace tarot either.
Mhm.
The things that dice do are which is instantaneous resolution, like figuring out yes or no is you can do that trivially with dice. It is so hard to answer a yes or no question with tarot.
Oh yeah,
It is
maybe
so
Yeah.
hard
impossible.
unless
I was gonna say,
unless
how
you
would you even begin to do that?
you're okay, does it beat the number threshold? And if you draw a major card,
Draw again.
draw again. So it's let me just ignore all of the things that makes a tarot deck, and okay, I can kind of get to it, but it's still way slower. It takes a lot more work. It's just bad. But what do I find here? Yeah, I can use dice and I can roll on a random table, but there's a much more immediacy of what do I find here. I pull over, I physically reveal what I find, what I see, and there's a really there's a phenomenal theatricality to it, um, especially since what we have is a suggestion, and so the players are okay, here are maybe some things that it could be, and then the facilitator is okay, I think this is how we're going to go for it. Or if you're working and you don't have a facilitator, it's the whole group being okay, what does this mean? How do we come to terms? How does this card make sense? Because sometimes the meaning of the card matches really poorly with the question that you're trying to ask, like what happened with my spread. And a couple of times we're talking about forces for positive change, and we're describing a human being, and it's how do I make these two things come together? And you end up with
Mhm.
something that is really powerful and emotionally poignant.
Right. And that's the thing though, is that these ideas, what I like about and walking through that process, right, is you take these seemingly unconnected ideas and you have to tell the story of how they have
Mhm.
meaning, right?
Yes.
You're even in that moment, you're telling a story, you're creating a narrative within it instead of just kind of a, well, I rolled this thing and so this is how it is. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? It's building on the thing that makes games worth playing, right? Like all we want to do is tell stories. That's all we want to do. So getting more chances or more opportunities to do that and really get to the heart of not to get too deep, but what it means to be human. It's that's the thing. These are why I love having these conversations, and this is in particular, this whole process is this is it. Because it forces you to tell the stories of yourself and or who you want to be in this game
Mhm.
in a way that I feel is very authentic, right? It's very close to home and human. I love that. I think it's sick. I'm a huge fan. 10 out of 10.
Thank you. Goodness. Okay, I'm a little blush a little bit. This is
No,
great.
well, no, lots of blushing because this is very cool.
Cool. Well, we're between spreads right now because I assume we're gonna do second wheel as red as well.
I think that sounds like an excellent idea. Yeah.
Cool. Well,
Awesome.
since we're between
take a
them,
quick
before we go to
break.
second wheel, let's take a break. Yeah.
Awesome.
Cool.
Cool. We will be back in like, I don't know, 5 minutes.
Awesome.
Great. And hey, look at us, we're back. I did know what I was doing. I don't have anywhere to go from there.
Well,
Cool.
no, yes, we do. We have a whole second wheel.
Oh, no.
We
Keegan
do have
doesn't
a
have
whole
anywhere to go
second
from here.
It's true. Cool.
We're
Well, you
going
can
on an
leave.
adventure, and I'm
Cool.
excited.
Okay. So, I'm gonna move over here. It's
We're on the
easier
second
to
wheel.
read. That's
So the
Q
first
for
wheel was
clocking.
family. What is the second?
So the first one, so the second one is also about family, but it's more about dialing into who. So it's more dialing into like my, I guess, personal journey as opposed to my family units.
Gotcha. Okay.
So like my family, so this is sort of also my family, but my family in a far less literal sense and much more metaphorical.
Yep,
My
this tracks.
family, past and present, if you will. So we're gonna go down to the tarot cam again. Ooh.
Need like a cool graphic.
I really regret. I was gonna buy another webcam. Earlier
That's
this
what I need
week.
to get.
I was gonna buy a webcam that like flattens out a table surface. It was that cool AI webcam we had at PAX era.
Ooh.
Oh, gotcha,
I was
gotcha,
gonna buy
gotcha.
one, and I keep thinking about it, and like I'm never gonna need a reason to stare at the table. And now I'm like, damn, if I had just listened to myself and bought that, I could be doing this, and we could just have 2 cameras for it, and
Very good.
I mean, in the upcoming stream, like there's going to be probably a fair amount of tarot, and so I'm going to need to get a second webcam so that I don't have to constantly be futzing around with it. Okay, so the second wheel, Gelgaline, we got to have multiple wheels, not just one. So again, is more about this character's personal background and their own history, and so. I actually misread it. So like this zero card is actually how people see me as opposed to how people see my mishpacha, which is what the first card should be. So we're going to just do this a little bit backwards because we can do that. So 6 of Swords. See, everyone makes mistakes, even people running their own games that they're trying to promo. It's great. Okay.
honestly,
we're human.
Most
We are
commonly,
human.
people mess up their own game rather than someone else's.
Well, it's been so many different things over the course of the life of the zine. I don't remember. Okay, 6 swords. The 6 of Swords thrusts the querent swiftly down an unrestricted course. You know that in order to proceed forward, you must leave something important or some part of yourself behind. This is a time to strongly navigate the intense turmoil, to pull through and beyond the sadness of detachment. Your rite of passage is a good omen, and soon the sense of loss will be replaced by a renewed acceptance of change and into a new terrain. So this is how people see my family. I guess we are the turmoil is how we read that. We
It's
are
band name called it.
It's certainly one way you could read it.
Yeah, like there are a couple. I think we'll go with this. We are the intense turmoil that will pull people through and beyond the sadness of detachments. We will give you feelings. I think, that's how. Yeah, we will give you feelings.
We are turmoil. We will give you feelings.
Exactly.
Put it on a shirt, okay?
We need like a shirt counter.
Chat, please help. Thank you. Okay, so cards 1 through 3 are exploring sort of the person who most impacted me while I was a youth. So this is a role model potentially, or a terrible negative influence. We'll see who we choose. So card 1, who was this person? The Ace of Swords. Okay. Like the eyes that loom over the Ace of Swords' luscious landscape, Your mind sees the breadth of potential spreading out before it. After feeling weakened by indecisiveness, you are energized by the abundance of strength and willpower that is now available to you. Your victory over mental strife occurred so suddenly that it may have come as a shock even to you. With this new insight follows an urge to engage personal freedom and break free from previous limitations. Shit, that's hard.
This is how we know we're in the good place.
This is, yeah, we are definitely not in the bad place here. Who the fuck is that? I mean, okay, so who is this person? This is someone who is energizing and is making one's options available and open to me. It's really interesting. Like, this is not like, there are a lot of people that I had in mind that I thought were going to be invoked by these three cards, and this does not fit any of them, which is really
interesting.
Like, you know, we have my childhood karate instructor, and I spent like probably 8 to 10 hours with him a week just doing martial arts. He was hugely informative. We've got I have acting teachers and voice teachers who, again, like, were really powerful and impactful people in my life, and none of them really seem to fit this, which is really interesting. Like, what does come to mind, and this is maybe not the best fit with this description of the card, but I think more to like this type of this sense of the aftermath of a very intense and personal storm, which is, I think, something what this card is sort of getting to. When I was in high school, I went to the Carnegie Mellon summer schools. The Carnegie Mellon University has a summer musical theater program, and I went to it because at the time, like, I decided that I was going to be a professional musical theater performer. Like, at the age of 11, I was like, this is what I'm going to do. And this is me. I don't even know that I'm an egg. And I'm just like, yeah, we're going to fucking go. And I go to this program, and like, this is the college that my parents went to. They have a top tier musical theater college program. And I had the worst time in the world.
Oh no.
And because the thing that I realized, but I could not admit to myself, was that the reason I had such a miserable time is because I actually didn't like acting. And like, what I know now that I'm like old and trans, well, that I know that I'm trans, is that I really liked the theater because it let me not be my shitty cis self.
Yeah.
And it let me step into explore a different mode or way of being that was not who I felt I had to be. And then I went and, like, with a bunch of people who were really like unreachably good in an environment that really demonstrated the difference between someone who is a good high school actor and someone who is like going to get into a conservatory. And like, we have a long conversation about whether conservatory programs are good, like capital G good, and like the pipeline to get people involved in the theater, and whether or not like the types of training that they are offering is like,
if it's valuable,
whether it's valuable, etc. Like, we could have a long conversation about that I don't want to have here. This is a tabletop stream, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
But like,
shut up.
But like that experience, and I guess maybe all three of these cards are going to be talking about this. Great. Is just I had a really shitty time, and I had no idea why, and it made me really bitter, and it made me really like even more of an obnoxious 16, 17-year-old than I already was. Oof. And like, yeah, it was bad.
17's tough.
It's a rough time, buddy.
It was a rough time. You know, I had a lot of friends giving me a lot more grace and generosity than I really deserved, because I was a real shit.
Yeah.
But that experience really kicked off this deep like identity crisis of, I have committed to being a professional performer and I hate it. What now? So card 2, the ways in which they affected my character. We have the devil. Great. Cool.
Oh, we in it now,
So,
babies.
I was going to ask a question, and then I don't have to, which is, do you think you're less of a shit now?
This is why tarot is great. Sometimes it just like boosh slaps you upside the head. Oh, cool. Well,
This has been a good stream. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah. I mean, we sort of talked about why I think the devil, is really appropriate here in terms of the effect that it had on me. It turned me into a real shit of a human. I was really depressed.
And I think that all checks out though too, right? Because when you have this, particularly when you're a kid, like
mm-hmm.
it's so easy to assign like greater meaning and like who you will be, and then to have that just dismantled in a structured fashion, like
Yep.
in a way that you can't step away from, and to bring up all of these questions of like, I enjoy not being myself, but I don't enjoy not being myself. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
well
said.
These confusing layered ideas. Yeah, I'd be fucking pissed too, buddy. Like that sucks. Like, and like this thing that was supposed to be your great moment, your escape, your triumph, and to have it just be underwhelming and miserable. Like, yeah, I'd be pissed. I'd be the grumpiest pants.
I'd be the grumpiest pants. Sarah, so
I was the grumpiest pants. It's true. You know, it's true.
Real stepdad phrasing. That's all I'm
I mean,
thank you, champ.
Correct. Yeah. Oh, no. All right. So
card 3.
Last one in this arc, second wheel, card number 3. How they have fared since our time together. 3 of Wands.
Oh, a returning card. We're seeing it twice.
Yeah. I don't. Cool. I guess. Because that was me. Cool. Yeah, card of collective energy, gathering strength with the help of other talents and energies. So I guess they're doing fine. Like, they're making money, they're working, they're collaborating, they are doing fine despite the wake of like what they have done, what I experienced at their hands. You know, and obviously not the outcome that they really intended. Like, and I really mean this no disrespect to the program. Like, the program structurally was fine. It was really a lot of who I was and how I was there. And they're doing fine. They're doing their conservatory bullshit. Whatever. Sure. Have fun, kids.
Sure. I think there's some it's something kind of poetic about that, because I think how often in life do you have this like life-changing, altering experience that defines who you are going forward, and it's just another Tuesday for the other person. Like, they don't even remember the interaction at all.
Exactly.
It's that sort of like, well, I'm forever changed and my brain chemistry has altered in a significant way, and I will always hold on to like this piece of this thing. And they were like, what happened? Who are you? Like, there's something.
And for Bison, this was a Tuesday.
Actually, you saying that actually reminds me of a very specific professor from that program, and that can actually link all 3 of these cards to that one person.
There you go.
Like, and this was this dramaturgy professor who was my first introduction to like communism and Marxist art theory, and introducing to a lot of experimental theater, which was incredible. And then he and like the academic side, like the historical side and like the philosophical side, I was super into that. That was great. He extended an invitation. You know, if any of your high school teachers have you do a play and part of your English class, write to me, and I'll be in communication with you about how we can bring a more dramaturgical analysis to this play. Because usually you're talking about plays in a high school English class, you're coming at it, treating it like you would a book, which it's not. You know, very kind, generous offer. And then when I reached out, he did not respond.
Oh no. We got it. We found it.
Yeah, like this is the person. This is that dramaturgy professor. And you know what? He is in fact now doing just fine. Working professionally. He's doing great. And you know what? For him, it was another Tuesday, and that's fine.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
how this shit goes.
Yeah.
Damn,
100%.
I was not expecting him to be in this spread at all.
How
This
funny.
is cool.
This is my favorite thing, and I just want to keep doing it forever.
Yeah. Okay. So that was 1, 2, and 3. Okay. Cards 4 to 6. Rooming down on someone appear specifically that I have known for a long, long time. So this is the moment that brought us close. It's the Hermits.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh.
Okay.
That's the card you would think it is. This is one of them, like Death, where you look at it and you're like, this doesn't. It says one thing on the card, but it means something else. That's not the case with the Hermit.
The Hermit is it's you go in the mountains and you have a lovely aesthetic experience and you never come down again.
You climb the mountain, you never come down. Yeah.
Exactly. That's the Hermit card. Shit. We'll see how the rest of these cards
I was
go.
gonna say, if this were me, I would read 5 and 6, and then we'd come back and look at them as
that's probably we're gonna do that. So we'll flip over these next 2 cards just so we can get a sense of what we're talking about here. So we got 2 of Wands and then the 10 of Pentacles. Okay, 2 of Wands adjacent to the 3 of Wands we have down here. The spark of inspiration from the Ace of Wands and ignites it into action, centered around planning and progression. This card speaks to the querent about carrying out the ideas you've been jittery to actualize. Okay, that's you. And that is for how we feel about each other now. Interesting. 6, that person's motivations and goals. So that's 10 of Pentacles. What are we gonna get here? 10 of Pentacles. Card of culmination and achieve fulfillment. Your image of success is a permanent one you've earned. This card speaks to the sharing of abundance and to care well for the people who supported your journey to create a full life for yourself. This card reminds us that all images of accomplishment can be manifested if the mind commits and sets out to create it concretely and inside.
This is intense.
This is really intense.
This is a really intense spread.
It's really intense.
This is really intense. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail here, I think.
Yeah,
that's
I
okay.
would say, I think
that
this
is
would
totally
be one
fine.
I would probably zoom past if I were you.
Yeah,
and I would not blame you for
it. Yeah, we're gonna leave this here and move on. But what I like about the spread for someone who is not reading for themselves, at least explicitly reading for themselves, is that it is going to give you 2 other characters that are likely not in any of the previous spreads, and gives you an immediate sense of backstory and how they're doing or what they're doing now, so that can be another player character, or that can just be another person lurking in the background for the facilitator to sort of pull at threads to tease out for future shenanigans and adventure.
Yeah, it's a world building exercise, right? I found the characters that I have at least 1 or 2 connections to, whether it's another player or somebody outside the immediate narrative. Those are the ones that are more fun to play and frankly, like, just overwhelmingly more enjoyable because they have connections to the world and they have a history that sure we can flesh out, but there's already kind of truth spoken about them, and it gives you that place to kind of work from, which is always great. I do the 5 4 3 2 1 whenever I have to do a character. It's like writing prompts, and one of them is establish 3 NPCs that your character knows, and like that has been essential every time. Like, I'm surprised, like, I write all these other things about my character, but it's always that NPC chunk that ends up being the part that actually matters.
One of the because I play a lot of like what I call adventure games, which are in sort of this like this 5th edition garbage Pathfinder OSR-ish space, is that we have a lot of people who feel like they can murder hobo. I'm going to use that word very intentionally. And what I have found to make people stop doing that is you make them give themselves a family, and you make them give themselves someone who has had an impact on them.
Mhm.
and you say, okay, you are part of this community. And while you can pick up and leave, like you're gonna get a letter from your sister who misses you and wishes that you would stop like murdering people and come home and like tend to the farm.
Mhm.
Because dad's kind of old. He's got a,
Right.
he's not walking super well. And even if this is like the most like, I mean, if this is the most like obnoxious grognardy person, then you should stop playing with them and kick them out. But like, if they're
Facts.
reachable, if they're willing, like if they're willing, if they're willing to care more, having people that they know that they're related to, like
Mhm.
that matters. That
I
matters.
the way I describe what you're talking about is video game brain. I think a lot of people show up to
Mm,
TTRPGs with video game brain, right?
that's
They're gonna
so
go
good.
in,
Yeah.
they're gonna kill the mobs, they're gonna get the exclamation point, they're gonna find the loot, and it's
Hmm.
really just running through a list of objectives. And your impact, you don't really have an impact on the world. You know what I mean? Like you do, but you
Hmm.
don't. Whether you kill this guy or not, like isn't going to affect your objectives
Hmm.
necessarily. There's no consequences that come from that. And I
Yeah.
think for me, a sign of a good game is how it removes that, right? Like
Hmm.
all of the games that I really enjoy are the ones that no, you are a part of this world. You are embedded in it. You have family, you have friends, you have purpose and meaning that will
Hmm.
keep you from doing that, right? Like and well,
Yeah.
not even doing that, but like treating this place with respect and like
Hmm.
you're an actual person rather than like a voiceless being charged with,
You're
saving the
not Master
galaxy
Chief
or whatever.
here or something. Yeah, the video game
Yeah,
brain is that's a good way of like framing that. That's I will be
right.
stealing that. Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, it's
That's
it's
just so
that.
good. Yeah.
We're here for XP and treasure, everything
Yeah.
else get fucked. Like
Nope.
that's and it's funny sitting at tables and recognizing like that person wants to play a video game. Like
Yeah.
they should just go do that.
They
They
should
should
go play
just go
Neverwinter
do that.
Nights. Like straight
Yes,
up.
there
That's
you
why
go.
Neverwinter Nights is so good. Is because it is a video game and you can just video game brain it and it's fine
Yes.
and the game works really well. And it's also
Mhm.
why you should never play Dungeons and Dragons with a real human.
100%. I vouch. Next t-shirt idea. Never play Dungeons and Dragons with people.
Yes.
With a real human.
With a
With a
real
real human.
human. You're right, you're right,
Yeah.
you're right.
You could probably
Yeah.
play it with Chat GPT perfectly fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you're correct. You're correct. Yeah. What's interesting is so this tarot system has gone through like a bunch of different iterations over time. And the
Mhm.
one that like I thought that was in the book and clearly is not in this book is where you had your spread of cards and you read them in lines. So you
Oh.
have your wheel and then you read like, okay, so I've got, tarot
Tarot cam.
tarot came down. So you've got your whatever,
Yeah.
and then you read it in lines. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2,
Okay.
3, 1, 2, 3. So, and
Ooh.
especially if like this is who your character is perceived to be or whatever, then all of a
Mhm.
sudden and so we've got these sort of narratives that are coming through you to some outcome in the future. And so we
Oh, I
have
love it.
so that's what I thought was in this. And honestly, what's in here is better and more useful for like things that are not what I run specifically. But that's one of the things I love about tarot and all the ways I got to play around with formatting and expressing tarot is that
Mhm.
you can read tarot like individually like we just did, or you can read it really linearly, and then we have like this one card that is serving multiple different functions with the same spread.
Right.
And so
Right.
it's me, but it's also how my best friend feels about me, and it's also like the goals of my worst enemy. And
Ooh.
it's like that makes my mind just
That's
like tickle and
that
bubble.
that gives me
Yeah.
like the cold chills, like
Yeah,
what does it all mean? Like it's that very
it's
good.
so
And
good.
like cuz sometimes, and again I think a lot of the times with TTRPGs is the answer is I don't know yet. Like
Hmm.
I don't know yet. And getting to play this character in whatever game or whatever set of circumstances they wind up in, it's always an opportunity to kind of fill in that gap of what does this mean? Like I
Yes.
what I like about this is you are ultimately going in with questions, right?
Hmm.
Like I think this is what this is about. Like this is this person or this is this experience. But
Hmm.
as you go on, like those three cards could take on a totally different meaning 10 sessions into your game, or it's like, oh no, it has nothing to do with that at all. It was this
Mhm.
thing the entire time, and how that changes, because that's what happens to people, right? Like, you have this really powerful moment with this person, and you think like, oh my gosh, it's crazy, and then 10 years later they're like, that was just another Tuesday, and how that shifts you, like, knowing that, and you're like, well, then what was
Mhm.
this big moment actually about then, if not like this thing that happened? It must have,
Mhm.
I need them, what is it? And so getting to
How could this
explore
not
that.
have meant anything to you? Because it was so impactful for me. Yeah.
Yeah, but like that meaning still has, it still needs a place
Mhm.
in like my mind, spirit, heart, what have you, to
Yeah.
belong, right? Because it's a part of me now.
Mhm.
uh or like recognizing, like, do I need to be carrying this anymore? Do I need 3 new cards? Do I need something
Mhm.
else to replace this? Like,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
love it. I think this is the coolest thing. I'm gonna
I mean,
scream
and
about a whole bunch.
if you wanted to be like really exciting and like especially with games that have more like intentional like character, like emotional character development and growth, is of course like what you were just saying, where you replace cards. You know,
Yeah,
do your goals has their goals changed? Do you need a new card?
yeah.
As your bonds change, do you need as you burn bonds or whatever, do you need a new card?
Mhm.
As you friends die, do you need new cards?
Right.
Like
Yeah.
wheels upon wheels upon wheels.
Yeah, and I think that, like, brilliant game design is something that keeps that in mind, instead of just giving you like a, here are 3 sentences that are true about your character.
Mhm.
Go nuts. Like,
Yeah.
finding a way to like tie that to deeper connection, and understanding that those will shift with time and movement.
Mhm.
Like, and
Yes.
making it so it's not some very abrupt sort of mechanical difference, right?
Mhm.
It's just, people change. The things that are
Yeah.
important shift, right?
Mhm.
And sometimes you need a really mean card to bully you into realizing that.
Yes, exactly, exactly. The more cards you draw, the more chances you get the devil or the tower or something really spicy, and then you know you're gonna have a really
The
bad time as a human and a really great time as a player.
Okay, this could potentially be a very ignorant question, but I want to ask. So there's all these really pretty cards in the
Mm.
decks,
Mhm.
and there's the Mystic Arcana. Do you guys have a favorite card?
That's a great question.
That's such a
I
good
like
question, and like that's why I'm like sitting back in my chair because I'm like, fuck, that's a good question, and
The issue is the cards really take on different meaning with
Yeah,
do.
but
like
is there
different
one that
strengths,
you
right?
see and you get, like, excited about? Like, is there one where you, like, pull it, and I'll ask the inverse as well. Is there one that you see and you go, "No,
It's
not
the
this
tower.
guy."
It's the tower. If you pull the tower, you're having a bad time. You either had a bad
True.
time, you're having a bad time, or you're about to have a really bad time.
Oh,
And that's what that
no.
says, right? It's like, what if your whole world crumbled around you? What would that look like?
Oh,
And
I
you're like,
hate
well, damn, I really don't want to know the answer to that question. Thank you.
See, what's I
Thank
think
you
is
for
really funny is
posing
that
it.
like my card I think is going to be the star, which
That's your favorite card, or the one
I
that you don't
think
wanna pull?
no, the cards I think the star is my favorite card.
Okay.
Because like and it comes in a sense actually like directly after the tower. So after everything has gone to shit, the star comes out and gives you this little glimmer of
Mm,
that not everything is lost and that there is more to come and more that is going to be good. And
mm.
that that promise, that premise of hope, I think is why like I really that draws me to that card. Um, and I think it's really delightful that, especially like we are like 2 weeks after Hanukkah, the Festival of Light, which is of course the time in which the light should have gone out but did not. And so like it's very cool to me that we have the star or that this temporary, this twinkle, this small little light that is again the light that should have gone out and did not.
And it's really beautiful because, like, the way you described tarot cards, right? Here are these things that do not care about you. Like, they are things that state how things are, and the fact that one of them is just, there is always hope. Like, that's beautiful.
It's
That's
it's very
that's
powerful.
that's
Yeah.
crazy. I love that.
Yeah.
Ah, this is so great. Sometimes I just get really excited.
I've had so much fun as a designer and as a player ever since I started working with tarot cards. And like I started being like, huh, tarot cards are kind of cool. I'm like doing like a mystical folky kind of game. Let me like just take a look at some tarot cards. And ever since then I'm like, oh, how can I put tarot cards into this interaction? How can I make more? 'Cause it's just there's so much beauty in care in these cards, or at least in how we can choose to interpret these cards now, vis-a-vis their very unfortunate history, etc. But like there is such beauty, there's poetry in these cards that I just adore it. I just adore them.
We were just...
Keegan, you looked like you had said something.
Oh no, I was just gonna say we were just talking about Hanukkah and tarot RPG and stuff like that. Which just reminded me, your Dungeon 23, which is completely off, vaguely off topic, but let's talk about it real quick, just because it's very
fine.
cool.
Of course.
Yeah,
if you don't know, you can find that on Tumblr. Probably the easiest way to find that is if you search.
It pulled up.
Oh, do you? Oh my goodness, you're so prepared. This is so unusual for like what I would expect from you.
I don't talk much during these, so I can have everything ready to go all the time.
Well, it's great. So probably the easiest way to find that on Tumblr is if you search Gelgelim, Gelgelim, because I tag it all and no one else is using that tag, because who's going to write a Hebrew word in English transliteration on Tumblr? Why would you do that? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm like debating whether I should say this, because like I'm gonna say this anyways. I really don't like dungeons.
Okay.
Very fair.
Okay, like, thank you. Thank you for saying it. Thank you for saying it out loud with your human words. Yes.
My the hottest take I have as someone who likes adventure games is that dungeons are actually bad. Like capital B, unspecified Y, bad. And like the very short answer is that because they are so limiting to the horizon of what players can expect to do. They are phenomenal training tools for people who are learning how to run games because they are so constrained and they are so limited. But as soon as you are halfway confident, halfway decent at running adventure games, they are so artificial and so limiting as to the really cool things that you can do in tabletop role-playing games. Like why would you put a video game thing into your tabletop role-playing game? Because Skyrim is great if you want to explore dungeons. If you want to explore dungeons, go to Skyrim, go to Destiny, go to any video game that's not like, you know what? Go to pretty much any video game and you can find a dungeon. Mm-hmm. Go to, oh goodness, Elden Ring. If you like dungeons, go to Elden Ring.
Right.
That shit does, like, you can do so much better in your tabletops. And so Dungeon 23, like, cool kids, have a good time. And I mean that, I'm saying that very flippantly, and I mean that very genuinely. Like, have a really good time. There's a lot of like really great pedagogy in making a regular writing habit and in practicing your design skills in a really structured fashion, like building a mega dungeon. Like, there's a lot of good in that. That is not, however, very good for me and like what I want to be doing and developing and growing. And so I was like, okay, well, what am I going to do that's kind of equivalent? Let's do blocks in cities, because like I'm going to be running this game, this game set in Nova Polska, which is a Yiddish fantasy setting for Neon Lights. This is a setting I've been working on for 3 or 4 years at this point. Let's get into the nitty gritty of like block by block, like, and I mean city block, like from first to second, Broadway to whatever is next to Broadway in New York City. I don't live in New York City. I do not know. I don't even know if there's a first and second that intersects with Broadway, actually.
There definitely isn't, but it's fine.
Cool. Thanks, Keegan. like that small setting, like what's at that place. And I get the idea for blocks from another designer, Alexei Smolensk, who is I think the only of the like OSR-ish, and he's not really an OSR person, like blogs that is not like a complete chud. Which if you know, then you know, and if you don't, I don't encourage you to research it, because it's just ugly.
Yeah.
But the idea of like why do you care about blocks is because this is a self-contained community of people, because they all live here, they all work here, they all do something here. And how do I, as players, like how do I like how do I interface with that, with this city, with this community? Because like a lot of people when I talk about like city design is it's very like top down of, well, here are these factions that are in cities, and here is the king, and here is the assistant, and like it's very like that's very good, but that's also very vague. And like, or they go the other thing and they go street by street, building by building. And I think as someone with ADD, I can't reference that during a game. That's too much detail, and I don't want to have to track, okay, if you take a left on Oak, there's an alleyway you can get to. That's too much for me and my brain. It's a lot. But a block, I can think about a block as a conceptual unit. I can think about, okay, this is the great market and there are some tenements next to it, and like maybe I can think about why these tenement blocks are a little bit different from each other. And I can, this is a very, like, from a design perspective, this is a very approachable series of like chunks I can break my city into. And then from a player's perspective, first off, I don't tell my players what the blocks are. They have to go find that out for themselves because they have to explore the city, especially if they don't live there. You know, the first day you go to a foreign, like to another city, it's okay, where do I stay? And maybe I stay, as I did my time in London, an hour and a half out of town with no convenient access to the tube in a place that was very shady. And you're like, oh, I got here. These lodgings are not particularly great. But now that I'm here, I'm going to have a way easier time of finding better lodging. Now that I'm here, I can start spending my time to explore and to learn what are my surroundings, what are my options are. And so as a player, okay, I go into the city. This is the block that I'm in. I get a little, like, there's some ways that I can interact with people here. For example, if I'm in the great market, I can buy and I can sell from people here. That's a thing that I can do. But I'm not going to be able to find housing in the market because no one lives in the market. But I might find someone who knows where housing is, maybe. But if I go, oh, hey, there's a mixed use block that's not too far. That has a restaurant. You know, this place, it's only going to have the one because there's not a lot of people here. And like traffic works differently in the 17th century than it does here. But I can go to the restaurant and I can have a drink and I can buy somebody a drink, and maybe they'll tell me a better place to stay. Maybe they can hook me up a deal. They've got a friend who's got a spare room that I can let. Maybe I hear some of the clerks who work at the neighboring Ratush, the town hall, about some of the gossip that's going on, and I can hear them having a conversation. And obviously, like, they're going to clam up if I get too close, but I can buy them a couple of drinks, pay for a meal, get them to like be a little bit friendlier, and I can learn some details about what's going on in the city's administrative center. I can learn who's got power, who can pay me to do adventure-y nonsense, who can I kill to get favor with somebody else, whose house is empty right now so I can go and burgle it. And by by looking at how these blocks are arranged and how they might mix and cross borders, I have a better sense as a facilitator of like running the city to my players, and my players also will slowly expand their own knowledge, their mastery, if you will, of the town and of this urban space. So that they know, okay, we're low on funds right now. We need either a quick job or we need to find someone who can pay us. Here are places I can go in the city that are going to get me where I can make progress towards one of those goals.
Right.
You know, I want patronage from this politician. In order to get patronage to the politician, I need a recommendation. Who do I know can give me a character reference? Or maybe I bribe one of their underlings to pass my name up. So here are all of these options that I can build and come together.
What I'm hearing you say is, rather than take the traditional approach of like creating a room with something to solve, you're defining like larger areas with more socially complex problems to solve, right? Like it's less about a trap and more about like, how do I engage with this person to the ends that I have, therefore like leaving it open, right? So you're not in a box, but you still have quandaries, right? But from your purposes, the skill set you're stretching is defining for your own purposes, like this is what is in this chunk.
Yes. Yeah. I love it. Bring it back to Dungeon 23. And like the other reason I like this framework is that where dungeons are very limiting in what you can do.
Mhm.
Cities are really hard because there is so little that is constraining what you can do. Or at least it's
Yeah.
hard to think about things that are going to reasonably constrain you. And so that can be really intimidating and really overwhelming to a lot of folks, including me. And so finding ways to not limit the options, but to say, here are some tools that you can find, and here is where you can find them, and here are some
Right.
here's some just suggestions as to what you might use those tools for.
Mhm.
So that, and which is, yeah, like what you said. There we go. Cool. Yes.
In short, yes.
In
In
short, yeah,
short,
what you said.
accurate. Correct. Well, and
Yes.
here's the thing. I'm glad that you said the thing, because I would say, and I know this is a bit of a tangent, but for like the Dungeon 23 stuff, like I'm watching people and they're like doing their cool dungeons and they're drawing their cool things. And I'm like, that's not how my brain works. Like that is not how I approach
Mhm.
these things at all. Like it's because it is that like you're in a room and there's a thing. Like that to me is not I struggle to visualize things in the context of like dungeons, if that makes sense. I
Mhm.
can do it.
Yeah.
I can sit down, I can force myself to do it. And like 100%, I think it's what's been really cool about Dungeon 23 is watching the people who excel at doing it and
Mhm.
like are really just, I'm like, I would not, if you had put me in a room and said you just need to do this one thing and gave me 8 hours, I would not have come up with anything remotely interesting. And this is like you spent 5 minutes this morning, like
You
over
knocked
your
something
oatmeal.
incredible out. Like there's, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. There's such incredible like skill involved in this type of like creation and like problem
Mhm.
riddle design, if you will. And
Yeah.
I do not have that. And I
No, I do
admire
not.
and respect the people who do.
Yeah, 100%. And I think for me, like dungeons have always kind of been tied to the kind of combat simulator side of TTRPGs, which again is not the thing that I play these games for. I'm not really
Mhm.
interested in like I can play Vermintide, buds. Like I can just go in and like knock it
Yeah.
out. I don't
Yeah.
need this component for that.
Mhm.
So what I'm trying to say is, yes, I agree with you, and I'm really glad that you said something because it makes me
In
feel less
short, I
crazy.
agree.
Yeah.
Sure, I
Yeah.
agree.
You know, it's also just been a lot of fun. You know, and I get to do research about like towns in Poland and like architectural history, which is something I like to do. And this is a really nice, like constrained way so I can't go overboard. So I
Mm.
get to like, I get to search in Polish Wikipedia and I get to do all kinds of cool, fun research and then sort of regurgitate it in a more functional, like more useful way for other people. It's
Mhm.
just, it's fun. Sorry, my meds are sort of wearing out, which is why I'm getting like less and less focus
No,
as we're
you're
going
great.
You're
on.
okay.
Yeah.
You're okay. I will say TTRPG research hits different. Like when you're looking stuff up for a game or
Mhm.
whatever that you're working on, the stuff that you Google gets so buck wild and like but in the best way. It's that niche thing where you're just like, and now I will know everything about this for this one tiny little snippet that's going to get mentioned in passing that no one else will care about. But now I know everything about
So
it.
exactly.
So
Yes.
This
Yes.
is why Sarah knows too much about goldfish.
correct. I know all the
I
best
mean, you
goldfish
know,
facts.
I can understand like that coming up sometimes, you know, at a party where you just need to whip out a really good like hour-long lecture about goldfish sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, that
Yeah.
happens.
Did you
That
know?
happens.
Did you know that they can tell the difference between classical music artists?
I mean, what do you mean by classical music? What do you mean by
Like
artists?
between like Mozart and Bach, they can tell the difference between
Okay.
those musics.
Okay.
They're
Okay.
fit. They have
Yeah.
little special hearing bones that vibrate in their heads, and it like
Fantastic.
See what I
Keegan's
meant by
so excited.
Sarah knew too much
Well,
information about
yeah,
goldfish?
now I'm really curious. Like I went to grad school for musicology, and so
Uh-huh.
I'm just like, okay, but like, okay, Mozart, Beethoven, sure, Mozart, Haydn, different Mozarts. Like
See, that's
how can we
I don't
get?
know I don't know how sophisticated we can get, but I
Hmm.
do know that there's like a difference. They are able to ascertain like
Mhm.
this is one body of music and this is another body of music. And
That is
like,
so interesting. Okay,
isn't that fucking nuts?
that's so cool. Sorry, Kiki, it's
It's
so cool.
crazy. I know, but that's the thing. Like I think once you start engaging with like research of a particular kind. And again, I've had to like write reports or had to like know something for work and had to like do research. TTRPG research hits different. Like it's so
It
funny.
does.
The last HP hero just popped into the chat, and he's a perfect example of this because he ran Mystery Flesh Pit for me and a group of folks. And like he would come in with like the most buck wild shit I'd ever seen. Like not even tied to the like Mystery Flesh Pit, but just like, here's what I think this sounds like, or just coming with all this weird stuff. And it was just in preparation for this one thing. And outside of any other context, it would have been like, this doesn't make any sense and this is absurd. But within the realm of TTRPGs, chef's kiss, perfect sense. Please do more.
That's so true about tabletop to tabletop research. I feel like tabletops are in many ways like very like one of the things that makes like really good design work for tabletop shine is when you know that they're spending more time not playing tabletops and like looking at other weird random shit like goldfish or weird aquatic creatures in the deep. Yeah, exactly. It should be called Tangent the stream.
It's 100% Tangent the stream. This is Sarah just wants to sit down with cool people that she thinks is cool and ask them questions.
Yeah, everyone's always like, I'm so sorry, I'm on a tangent. Like, no, that's the point of the stream. You're fine.
It's great. It's great. I love it.
Keegan, do we have any other questions that we want to ask?
No, I was just saying, I think we're legitimately running up on the end here.
We are. We've been talking for quite a while. My goodness.
Yeah.
We have. So before we go, Danielle, is there anything? First of all, thank you so much for being here. This is a delight. I'm going to be bothering you about tarot readings all the time now, 24/7.
That sounds exciting. Cool. I look forward to it, Sarah.
It's going to be the best. I'm going to have so many questions. But is there anything you want to promote? Where can people find you? What's the best way to support you?
Yeah,
all of the things.
So, right, the spiel. You can find me most active now on Tumblr at Ostermad, I think _blog or something.
Ostermad _blog, because I happen to have it open in a tab.
Thanks, Keegan. Yeah, so you can find me there. You'll find some game design stuff, a lot of queer, like, people being funny, a lot of trans, like, art. It's going to be great. I like to reblog a lot of people. You can also ask me questions on Tumblr, because apparently that's a thing that you can do, so feel free to reach out. Great. Keegan dropping it in the chat. If you want to find the games that I made, like the Tarot, the Zine, the Monster Guts that we mentioned briefly, the Osterman Academy, the link is
so good.
below my head.
So
the link is below my head. That's really not. Is it below my head?
It's
it looks like below your head, Keegan.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's below Keegan's head. Most of my games have prices, but also community copies. And if I'm out of community copies, let me know, and I will add more. Yeah, and then in terms of like things that are upcoming, the next like big thing is I'll be running an actual play for Neon Lights that'll be set in Nova Polska, and so you're going to see a lot of the same tarot stuff. You're going to see the Dungeon 23 stuff that I've been doing on Tumblr also coming into play because we'll be using that same block fragment. Block framework. I don't know if we'll be in Zamość or not, or some other city in Poland, but it'll be. I'm sure we will find out, and it'll be very exciting. Yeah, that's it. Were there any audience questions that we wanted to take before we bounced, or are we set to go?
Looks like we're good to go.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I think we're set. Keegan, any +1 news things we should share?
Yeah, we have on the 23rd, we have the first Blister City.
Dude, I'm so excited.
People talk about Blister City. And that's on the 23rd. I think that's the only thing on the schedule, but also I don't have access to the +1 calendar yet because Tony still hasn't done that for me. So I could be wrong, and there could be things like happening tomorrow, and I would have no idea.
Listen, we're doing our best. That's all you can do.
Well, thank you so much for having me. This has been an absolute blast. Yeah, thank you so much.
Cool. Until next time.
Yep.
Bye, everybody. Enjoy your pizza.
Indeed.